And the very first thing a court must establish is the word knowledge.
Ah, the government. It loves you and wants to keep you safe and well. It even wants to make paying taxes, fines, and court costs easier for you. How? Well, you'll need to meet your straw man. He was born the same day you were. He looks like you, has the same name, and lives in your house, but you never knew he existed. You will have even paid his parking tickets or taxes. The worst part? He's been dead from day one. From every birth certificate, a legal personality, or legal fiction, is created with the same name to confuse little old you into thinking it's you. So, there is a human you and a paper you, or as it's commonly known, a straw man. So when it seems like government officials, court clerks, or the police are speaking English, they aren't. They're speaking legalese, designed to make you agree to verbal and written contracts without even knowing about it, all spun from Black's Law Dictionary. For example, when the police say, "Do you understand?" you'll say, "Yes." What they are really saying is, "Do you stand under our authority?" Oops-a-daisy, you just created a verbal contract with them. Oh, you clever government. Did you know that whenever you register something, you are handing over title to the person you register it with? That's right. Whenever you register something with the government, they assume it belongs to them. Registered your car? Super! Now you are the registered keeper of your vehicle, and the government can crush it when you don't pay your, straw man's taxes. Expecting a new bundle of joy? Well then, you need to register your little darling with a birth certificate. Then they can start the process all over again and create a new straw man for your little one. Isn't that great? So when Junior grows up, he'll be able to generate revenue just like you have. When you notify on your baby by signing the birth certificate, your child becomes a ward of state. And if the government doesn't like what you're doing, they'll assume it's okay to take the child away.
It's a beautiful thing to know the law. It really is. And I know that you're outside of law because you're acting outside of constitutional fold of government. And then we can talk about international law violations. See, now before I've been kind where I always drop it and I leave it alone. But now that's piracy, human trafficking, treason, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of a nationality nor the right to change one. My child is not Negro, black, or colored, and so he is not under color of law. Your little 1724 Christian black codes, baby. I understand it very well. That's where your policies come from.
Why do you keep bringing up the color thing? Because we don't care.
That's color of law. That's how you enforce color of law. White male, black male. That's how you enforce your law. Yeah. You never describe the national descent of a people, because if you have to put down a national descent, you have to tell who you are. And all you're American, right? You're American?
I am an American, yes.
You're American. You're not even a naturalized citizen, lady. You come from Europe. You're not American. American is a geographic landmass, north, central, and south, and adjoining islands. You people came here in 1492 and thus after. Where's your green card? Who gave you naturalization rights here in my land? I'm asking you. What nationality are you? What nation's flag, what country's flag do you come with? What country's flag are you here with? You're supposed to answer these questions. You know that, right? You have no other option. I'm not a 14th Amendment corporate person. I'm not a 15th.
That we'd like to get home to his parents. That's what
You're kidnapping my child and you refuse to identify yourself. I have the right to walk where I want to walk. You know. You can't tell me that you have my child. You can't touch me.
You're not going to step up.
I'm letting you know right now, you don't have the right to do anything to me. I do not consent to your private corporate law. That's my child. You can say what you want to say all you want to. You can, if you want to touch me, I'm going to own your ass. That's my child. I already got you for that. You can get all puffy if you want to. I got each one of you.
Okay.
Yeah, I got each one of you. I got every last one of you.
We're done here.
No, when you're done here, what? Interrogating my child like the Inquisition? That's my child. That's my child. You have not. You can't tell me what to do, man. You can't tell me what to do, and you know it. You know that's my child. You have. You want to harm me. I know you want to touch me.
Okay, you guys come behind back.
I'm not going to touch you like that. That's my child you got. And so conspiracy, 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 and kidnapping. You got to know the law. I'm trying to help you here. But, I appreciate your resolve for standing your ground. My child, it's not a ward of the state. Your corporate state. Well, so you just admitted you kidnapped my child. Thank you. Thank you. You have no right. You have not identified yourself properly in law. None of you all. You didn't identify yourself.
Are we done? All right, we're done. See ya.
No, I will see you before I let you slide, but I'm not now.
Very good.
Very good. Kidnapping. Look at, wow. Look at all these colonizers kidnapping. You're losing your power all over the planet. American. Not American.
First of all, when you talk United States, there's two United States. There is a United States where the 50 states had actually united, but how did they unite? They united under the Federal District of Columbia, which is actually a 10 square mile radius in Washington, D.C. I didn't say Washington, D.C. I say Washington, D.C. because they're operating under the spirit and vibration of Satan. They're luministic figures and they're controlling this world. So the reason that I say law is not being practiced is because for anyone to practice law, you have to be in a sovereign capacity. Now I got a question. This may offend some people, but it's the truth. I got a question. Now, if you ask the Euro Gentiles, the Edomites, how long have they been into this land? They're going to start giving you dates like, oh yeah, my parents or my grandparents got here in 1907, and some may go back to 18 something. And the further is actually they're going to go back is over 300 and some years. But can there be Americans? Because to be under the capacity to practice law in America, then you have to be in a sovereign capacity. So you have to be an American. So what is an American? That's the first thing. Now, when you look in the current Webster's dictionary, they throw you off. And this is why I encourage you to study to show thyself approved. So when you look in the American dictionary or the Webster's dictionary of 1828, it says that American or the copper-colored people found by Europeans, when they arrived in this land of America, a Mexican. So what does that mean? That means that in its true sense, when you're looking at the true etymology of the word, when you go back to the Webster's 1828 definition of an American, there could be no such thing as a white American. It could be a so-called white American. There could be no such thing as a Chinese American. Now, if I'm offending someone, it's the truth, and the truth cuts deep. John 8:32 said the truth will make you free. I contend that the truth will make you mad, then make you free. Because a lot of people get mad when they hear this truth. When this truth start coming out in the book of Hebrews, it tells you that the truth, the word of the Most High, cuts deep down into the bone marrow. That's why people get so upset, because everything that I state is rooted in the word. So now let's go back to this. So the people that has actually set themselves up as Americans, that's referring to themselves as Americans. I'm referring to the Euro Gentiles, Edomites of the Bibles. They can never be Americans according to Webster's dictionary, because the true Americans was the indigenous people that was of the copper-colored skin that was actually found by Europeans when they arrived. Understand that. So now that that's on the table, so if the people are not indigenous to the land, they cannot be practicing law. So most of you, when you go into buildings like this, you assume that law is on the table, but it is not law, because for anyone to establish law and anyone to practice law, they have to be in a sovereign capacity. So the Euro Gentiles, the Edomites, is actually sitting on the benches, and by the word bench is Latin for bank, because when you go into a courtroom, the judge is sitting on a bench. He's not sitting on a bench. So understand, you got to understand the language that they're speaking. They're speaking legalese. And this is why I tell you, when you go into these colorable courts, because they're not true courts of records, law is not on the table. You just assume that law is on the table. It is not law, it is public policy. And so the only people that this court actually applies to is the people that's operating under a corporate ward status. Now understand that the people that make up this public policy is what? They're in a corporate ward status, which means they're operating from corporation. So this thing right here that you think is a court of law, it is a colorable venue where colorable laws are being practiced. It is not law, it is statutes, it is codes, it is rules, it is regulations, it is act. And you can tell it's an act because when the black robe comes out in his priestly attire with his black priestly robe, that's part of his costume. The bailiff comes out in his costume to intimidate you with a gun on. And then the prosecutor has on his costume, which is a suit and tie, and that tie is Masonic.
When showing up to court, you will notice that there are seats for witnesses behind a wooden fence or barrier. The defendant must cross through the entrance to the other side of the barrier where the plaintiff and judge sit. This act symbolizes the boarding of a ship. At this time, business can be conducted in maritime admiralty law. The judge, acting as captain or banker, is responsible for settling the balance between the two sides. This is why there is always a monetary value involved in any court case. The captain is simply dealing with banking and merchant disputes. Once the balance is paid, the case is closed. To turn the court case away from admiralty law where your rights are not protected, you must avoid agreeing to represent the artificial person. This is done by stating that you are the natural person. You don't have a first or last name because those imply corporate title. In a court case, you may state that the court takes judicial notice of your honor's oath of office. Every judge must take an oath of office to practice law. Yet you must make it clear to the court and the jury that the judge is acting as judge and not banker. Remember that you are a natural human being of the earth. You are not governed by anything but your own consciousness. Laws are created within a society. The society that created the laws we see being enforced today is called the Law Society. Yet the most beautiful part of this entire deception is the fact that we are not part of the Law Society, so their laws do not apply to us.
Charged on the 31st of August of 2013 with obstructing a police officer in violation of 457302. You were also charged on the same date with resisting arrest in violation of 457301 of the Montana Code.
Those men were charged by me right back by staging an overthrow of the Constitution of 1789, an overthrow of the Bill of Rights, an overthrow of my rights to forage for food as a natural living person who was in hunger. I was searching for something to put in my stomach, as I am recognized to be allowed to do by universal law. Has nothing to do with your corporate fiction. They violated everything, and furthermore, for your knowledge, they violated Judge Holly Brown's Title 26 United States Code ruling, which I went before her and prevailed on 21st March 2011. DPO 9-58A is the case number wherein she evidenced that I am not a taxpayer because I am not a federal citizen. Federal law trumps state law at every turn. I have 9 judge rulings to that end, and that trumps state law. I am not registered crap. I am the living man, and I have the right to forage for food when I'm hungry.
All right. But you're here on different charges.
That
This is not
what
Holly
stands.
Brown's courtroom.
Ma'am, you can argue this all day long. You're operating on a corporate fiction.
I'm telling you, you're here on some charges which were filed in Three Forks.
I do not
Number
understand
one.
those charges.
Number one, you keep interrupting me, and I'm going to charge you with contempt, and you'll go to
All
jail.
contempt of court is spelled C-O-double-N. I know about conning. That's navigation.
Sir,
Contempt is the storm.
I said, be
Don't
quiet
touch me.
until I get
Don't
through
touch
reading
me.
this
You
to
ain't a
you.
god. Don't
Officer?
you touch me. I am the living man protected by universal law.
You keep
stand
talking,
down.
and you're going to be charged with contempt, and you're going to go to jail.
You have already contempted this place.
No, I told
by
you
the
I
fraud
would if
you're
you
trying
didn't
to
quit
get done
talking.
here. These are the living witnesses to what you're trying to do.
Very
You
good.
are trying to create a fictitious fraudulent action. You are trying to bilk the Federal Reserve by
Sir.
securitizing in all caps commercialized name
Sir.
and
Would
notifying
you
them
remove him from the
that
courtroom? Officer.
they are standing in debt now. If you touch me, you will violate natural law. Do not come near me. I am
Then
protected
shush,
by the land.
shush.
Do not tell me to shut up! I am
am-
the living natural man, and my voice will be heard. That is the Jolly Roger. That thing you call the American flag with the gold fringe around it is the Jolly Roger, and you are acting as one of his privateers.
Okay, you're here on the charge of arrest.
I'm
resisting
here by
arrest.
special visitation.
Right. And
I've
you're
never
here
let
on
you get away with
obstructing
this,
a
but
police
I'm here.
officer. To each charge, could be up to a $500 fine, up to 6 months in jail.
I do not understand any charges. I only understand universal law and the right to live.
Well, you
To
pled
live in
not
peace
guilty.
and to live as I need to.
You pled not guilty in this
I
court.
never plead. Animals plead. Sound like bah, oink oink.
I have a paper with your signature on it, sir.
It says prime evidence standing right through it. You bring forward all natural
Right.
forms of evidence that I'm not prime evidence. I am the living soil. The dirt, the water, and the air has its own voice, does it not? It all supports
Sir?
forms of life, does it not? I am a part of that life. I am not your corporate fiction.
Sir?
Do you have 3 forms of identification? I need to see your badge, a business card, and a photo identification if you'd like to contract with me, sir. I do not believe that I have a contract with you, and I'm obligated to answer any of your questions. If you'd like to contract with me, we can do so. If you provide me 3 forms of ID, I'd love to.
Contract with you?
Is that what you're trying to do with me, sir? Are you trying to contract with me?
Said, what's contract with you? What's that mean?
I don't know. What are you trying to do with me, sir? Are you operating as a public official right now? Are you a public servant?
What do you think?
I'm asking you a direct question, yes or no? The master asks the questions and the servant answers them.
You are
Wouldn't that be
giving the answer
correct?
to it.
No. The master asks the questions and the servant answers them. I don't work for you, sir. I don't answer your questions, Sergeant. You answer mine. So I'm asking you a question. Are you a public servant? You are. You are a public servant, aren't you? I actually have a contract with you and your principal, which would be the sergeant or the sheriff who is a public employee and publicly elected official of the county of Los Angeles. The people collectively, citizens, elected him to represent us to keep the peace. So he has delegated his authority to each one of you individuals, I'm assuming, who are operating in an official capacity as a legal entity of which I'm not obligated to contract with unless I choose to do so. And I don't choose to do so, sir. So unless you have 3 forms of ID right now, I don't even believe that you're in your uniform, okay? And honestly, I'm feeling really threatened right now. I would appreciate it if you'd step away from me because I see 3 or 4 armed people armed with deadly weapons, and I feel threatened. So would you please just back away from me because I'm at my dwellings. This is my house. I live here. Because this is actually intimidation. You're attempting to intimidate me from exercising my constitutionally protected rights. Which would be a violation of what? Any of you guys know? Title 18, you want me to read it to you?
Why don't you tell us?
Okay, cool. That would be a violation of Title 18 of the United States Court of Law, or United States Code of Law. Okay? Title 18, Chapter 13, subsection 241, 242. Right here. Part 1. Chapter 13, subsection 241 of the United States Code of Law. If 2 or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, or possession, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution, or the laws of the United States, or having so exercised them, if 2 or more persons go in disguise on a highway or the premises of another, which is what it really seems to me like what you guys are doing right now. You're on the premises of another, acting under a color of law. Does anyone know what color of law is? Anyone? Sergeant, I know you do. Come on. What's color of law? Color of authority? You guys don't know what color of law is?
Why don't you tell us?
Color of law is where you're in an official uniform right now. You're acting as a public employee. You're wearing a uniform of the state, acting with the authority of the state. And therefore, when you breach your duty as a public official, now your bonds become up for grabs for people like me to go and file claims against you in the county. I go and get your badge numbers, and I go and I write a claim against the county. And I say that, hey, this public employee came to my house with a gun, and they intimidated me from exercising. I'm told you right now, I feel intimidated.
We're not brandishing weapons at you.
Well, there's 4 armed men
We're not pointing them.
and women who refused to produce 3 forms of ID upon my request. What, 3 times now? Are you guys public servants or public employees? You won't even identify yourselves. I don't care if you're wearing a badge and a uniform. I can go get a fucking costume and wear the same shit and walk around with a gun. Oh my God, I got a shiny medallion and a gun. So what? That doesn't mean anything. You have to have 3 forms of ID. The Supreme Court said that, right? Here we go.
A common misconception among people is that any rule or regulation that governs them falls under one category: law. But there are many other forms of law that people abide by without realizing that they simply do not apply to them. Another misconception is that a nation's constitution gives us our rights. A constitution does nothing more than list the rights that we already have. We are born with inalienable rights, endowed to us by our Creator. They are not given to us, and they cannot be given away. The most a person can do with a right is choose whether to exercise it or not. Maritime Admiralty law is what's known as the law of the water. It is superseded by civil law and only applies to those who willingly contract themselves into it. The definition of Admiralty law is a body of private international law governing the relationships between private entities which operate vessels on the oceans. Let's look at how and why a form of law that is fashioned to govern corporations, businesses, and vessels has imposed its rule over natural human beings. This is all done through a form of word magic. A simple perversion of language has made it possible to convince people around the world that these alternative laws apply to them. One of the predominant beliefs in modern culture is that licenses, permits, registrations, and other forms of documentation are required to operate motor vehicles, use public roads, build structures and establishments, engage in free enterprise, and much more. Sadly, these beliefs are based on little to no investigation whatsoever, and are false. This belief structure is perpetuated by Maritime Admiralty law. This form of law was originally created to govern ships docking in foreign nations for the import or export of products and resources. It deals with banking and merchant affairs, not civil affairs. When a product is taken off of a ship and brought into a foreign land, that nation takes custody of the resource and accounts for it with a certificate. That certificate marks the birth date of that product in the custody of the respective nation. Think of why it is supposedly required to have a certificate of live birth in the first place. The Barron's Dictionary of Banking Terms defines a certificate as a paper establishing an ownership claim. So right there, we notice that everyone with a birth certificate is defined as being owned. People are used as collateral with other nations because the U.S. is bankrupt. The United States declared bankruptcy on March 9th of 1933. At this point, the U.S. began taking out loans from a private, non-government affiliated corporation called the Federal Reserve. With no money to pay back the loans, the United States began using the citizens as collateral. All birth and marriage certificates are literally warehouse receipts. Just look at the similarities of warehouse receipts and birth certificates. Both document the date of issue, a serial number, registration number or receipt number, a description of the product, and an authorized informant to notify the appropriate government agency. With all of this information being readily available, the majority of people are unaware of their involvement with Maritime Admiralty law. This is possible through the manipulation of language. This Admiralty law changed the meaning of the word person from a natural living person to a corporation. Driver's licenses, vehicle registrations, auto insurance forms, building permits, gun permits, work permits, tax filing documents, birth and death certificates, traffic citations, and many other forms of documentation that were once believed to be absolutely necessary only applied to persons or corporations. Upon signing such a legal document, you are indirectly waiving your rights under the Constitution and lowering your status to that of a corporation that is created with the same exact name as you. The only way to reconcile your true name from the name of the corporation is to take notice that the corporation has its name in all capital letters. This is known as capitis diminutia maxima. You may take notice that your driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, insurance cards, and more use all capital letters to legally represent the corporation with your name, not you. The corporation is known as an artificial person, whereas you, the human being, are known as a natural person.
You see, there are two kinds of law. This is a subject I love. I've been talking about this for years. There are two kinds of law on the earth that rule the whole world, but most people don't know that. All over the world, all governments are ruled by what is called civil law. Civil law goes back to a Latin word, civili, which goes back to the word illy. Oh God, I mean, we could go on for hours on this stuff. Civil law, which is called in all countries the law of the land. So you'll say, well, you can't do that because that's against the law of the land. The law of the land is civil law, Roman civil law, the law of the land. But there is a second law which also operates all over the earth identical. It's called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. That is the law of God in the world of business. I don't care if you're in Japan, in Africa, in China, in Istanbul, Turkey. If you have a company, if you have a corporation, if you are doing business where you buy and sell and make money, you are operating on this earth under something called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. Because if all countries worked on a different commercial code, then nobody could do business with anybody. You couldn't trust Japan to pay you. Japan couldn't trust America to pay them for the cars, because everybody has their own laws. Under the Caesars of Rome, they established under Caesar that all nations in the empire that do business, everybody plays on a level field. If you do business in Africa with China, you pay them. And if Africa does business with American companies, you pay them. You pay whatever it is you're doing business. You don't mess around. The most severe law in this world is called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. It's the Bible of business on the earth. Uniform Commercial Code. Uniform Commercial Code is based directly on Vatican canon law, on the Roman canon law. Consequently, when a ship pulls into port, it pulls in and stops, and it's called in its berth. The ship is now in its berth. Because it is on the law of the high seas, or commercial maritime, UCC commercial law rules the seas. So when the ship pulls into its berth, the first thing the captain must do is to present a certificate of manifest to the port authorities, which means that the port authorities need to know how much is on this ship that you're bringing into our country and our economy. How many TVs, how many cars, whatever you're bringing, how much are you bringing into our economy. So you have to have a certificate of manifest of what is the value of your ship here. What are you doing? Consequently, when you are born, you come out of your mother's water. Therefore, you must have a birth certificate, a certificate of manifest, because you are a corporation-owned item. You are a human resource. This goes back to the German Nazi concept that every human coming out of their mother's water must be birthed. And therefore you have to have a certificate, a manifest, to see how much this individual is going to make for us in our new world order. I'm telling you that until you understand the laws, the symbols, the emblems, what these words mean, you're never going to suspect how far gone we really are. Did you know, for instance, that your birth certificate is a security on the stock exchange in the New York stock market? Did you know that? Because if you order your birth certificate, get a new one, order your birth certificate, it'll only cost you, sometimes it's free. It'll only cost you a few dollars. Order your birth certificate. On your birth certificate, all birth certificates in this country, on the bottom, it will tell you this is printed on security papers. Do not accept if not on full color security paper. Then on the right-hand corner, you will always have a series of numbers, red numbers, printed on the birth certificate. Those numbers are a security stock exchange number on the World Stock Exchange. You go to any good stock office and ask them, check these numbers in your computer and see how much this stock is worth, the certificate. And they will check it on the New York Stock Exchange and find your birth certificate is a stock on the stock exchange in America. Why? Because you are worth money to the international bank that bought you in 1930. We need to wake up. This is serious stuff.